I knew I was screwed the second I saw the new nameplate on the CEO's door. But back then I was still showing up early, fixing stuff before it broke, doing what I'd done for 18 years. Not flashy, just dependable. I wasn't a manager, didn't have a corner office. Hell, I didn't even have a door. Just a cubicle and a desk fan that only worked if you kicked it. My name's Eric Dawson. I'm 42 years old. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. People called me the quiet guy at Grayson Industries. But what made me different wasn't what I said. It's what I signed. See, our biggest investor, the one guy keeping the whole place afloat, was deaf and couldn't speak. Alain Lefebvre, a billionaire out of Montreal with more money than our entire payroll combined. He ran a private equity group called Ridgestone Holdings, the same firm that kept our lights on. He didn't trust talkers. He trusted clarity. The first time he visited, they wheeled out two interpreters in stiff suits and plastic smiles. He didn't like them, wouldn't even shake their hands. I'd been taking ASL night classes for years. Started back when my cousin lost his hearing in a car accident. I stepped in, just tried to make the man feel seen. We clicked right away. After that, I was the guy. Every time Alain flew in, I was there. No title upgrade, no bonus, just a handshake from him and a nod from the old CEO. But you know what? That was enough for me. I didn't want a corner office, I just wanted to matter. Before we start, how's your day going? And where are you joining from? Thing is, when you build trust that way, through silence and precision, it's a bond most people don't even notice, which means it's fragile and easy to destroy when the wrong person walks in, thinking they've got all the answers. The wrong person showed up on a Monday, some corporate suit named Dane Mercier, Harvard degree, MBA. The kind of guy who stares right through the janitor but sends 3-paragraph emails about team synergy. Nobody warned him. Nobody told him who I was, and that's when I learned. Nobody reads your file when they've already decided you're disposable. That morning, I was reviewing Alain's visit notes, planning for next week. I had everything set, even the dumb bottled water he liked, with the caps halfway unscrewed, because of a hand injury no one knew about except me. But by lunch, I felt the floor shift. Something in the air tightened. I walked past Carol in HR and saw her box up 2 framed photos. Then someone cleared out the CFO's office. And then I heard it. The words that marked the beginning of the end. "Who's Eric Dawson?" That's what he said. Loud enough for half the hall to hear. I didn't answer. Just kept walking like I hadn't heard it. If a man's dumb enough to ask that question in this building, he's not ready for the answer. By noon, they were pulling chairs from conference rooms. By 2, the senior ops manager was carrying a banker's box out the front door, with her eyes locked forward like she was trying not to cry. This guy, Dane Mercier, wasn't just cutting fat. He was slicing muscle. I kept my head down, didn't gossip, didn't poke the bear. I had Alain Lefebvre flying in next week, and that mattered more than the suits getting axed. Alain didn't come for spreadsheets. He came to read people. The way they stood, how they looked at him, that's where he found truth. My job wasn't just to sign words. I had to keep the current steady between us. No static. By Friday night, I could feel it in my gut. Something was coming. I was just waiting for the shoe to drop. Monday morning, my inbox lit up. Meeting with CEO, 9 a.m., no subject line, no notes, just a time. I knew what it meant. I walked in and found him waiting with that same polished smirk. No coffee cup, no papers stacked, nothing but my file sitting in front of him, like it held proof of my uselessness. He didn't waste a second. "We're trimming roles without upward potential," Dane said. "You're not qualified by modern standards." Just like that. Cold. He didn't even try to dress it up. I didn't answer. I'd learned a long time ago. If someone has already made up their mind, nothing you say matters. Talking just gives them more to twist. He tapped the folder once with his pen. "You'll receive 3 months severance. HR will schedule the exit." That was it. 18 years. Gone in 2 sentences. He didn't ask what I did. Didn't ask who I worked with. Didn't ask why Alain Lefebvre shook my hand every damn quarter while ignoring every executive in the room. I looked at him. Not at the file. Not at his hands. At him. He shifted in his chair. "Good luck with your next meeting," I said. That's all. No yelling, no begging. Just those words. He blinked like he wasn't sure if I was serious or if I'd just cursed him out in some way he couldn't translate. But I walked out calm, quiet, and I swear to God, that rattled him more than anything I could have said. I went straight to my desk, packed the rest of my things into a single box. People glanced at me, but no one asked questions. They all knew. Some of them avoided eye contact. The smart ones knew better than to look at the guy walking out with his career in cardboard. When HR called me in, I signed the papers without reading them. I didn't need to. It was just boilerplate. Severance. Company laptop return. Badge deactivated. The whole routine. The woman across the table looked embarrassed. She slid the envelope over like it was radioactive. "I'm sorry, Eric. I don't agree with this." I gave her one nod. "Not your call." She flinched a little at my tone, but didn't argue. She knew I wasn't wrong. By the time I hit the lobby, I was carrying everything I owned from that building in one hand. 18 years in a box. The security guard avoided my eyes. The receptionist gave me a tight smile, like she'd just watched someone get lowered into the ground. I stepped outside into the October air. It felt different, colder than it should have. But under the sting, I felt something else, sharp and steady. Alain Lefebvre was landing in 3 days. 3. And when he walked into that boardroom, looking for me, and found nothing but silence, that's when they'd learn what they'd really cut loose. Not a guy with a cubicle, not a mid-level, nobody. The bridge. And once a bridge is gone, you don't just lose the road. You lose everything on the other side. I drove home without the radio on. Didn't need noise. I just replayed his face in my head, that cocky half-smile when he thought he'd cleaned house. He didn't even realize he'd set fire to the foundation. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I wasn't angry anymore. Not sad either, just clear. They'd fired me without knowing what I carried. And in 3 days, they were going to find out the hard way. I dropped the box by the front door and left it there. Didn't even take off my shoes. Just walked straight into the kitchen and grabbed the landline. Not to sulk, not to vent. I had work to do. First number I dialed was Carl. He'd taught me ASL back when I didn't even know what a classifier was. He used to sign faster than I could think. Now he ran training for international interpreters out of Chicago. He picked up on the third ring. "Eric, they cut me," I said. The new CEO didn't even ask what I did. Just walked me out. He didn't pause, didn't even sigh. "Let me guess," he said. "They'll be calling soon. I'm counting on it." I hung up. That was all we needed. Me and Carl didn't do long goodbyes. Next was Jody Fields, court interpreter from Columbus. We'd met at a conference workshop 5 years back, ended up talking shop over bad coffee and fluorescent lighting. She was sharp, had a gut for people who didn't understand the weight of silence. She answered on speakerphone. I heard papers shuffling. "Eric Dawson, I was just thinking about you," she said. "They let me go." "Shut up. CEO says my role had no upward potential. Apparently, speaking fluent billionaire isn't on the org chart." She didn't laugh. "He's walking into that meeting blind," I said. "I just want you to know. They might come looking for a replacement. You want me to say no? No? I want you to say nothing. Let them feel it." There was a pause. I could picture her leaning back, chewing the inside of her cheek. "Done," she said. The last call was the hardest. Leia, Alain's assistant. The one person on this planet who could reach him in ways even I couldn't. She didn't just translate for him. She anticipated him. She knew every line in his face, every shift in posture. If anyone would understand, it was her. I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the phone for a second. Then I dialed. She picked up instantly. "Eric, I won't be at the meeting Wednesday," I said. Silence. "You're not sick, are you?" "No," I swallowed. "Just fired." She didn't respond, didn't gasp or ask why. She didn't have to. "Take care of him," I said. "I always do." She hung up. I sat there for a while after that, just breathing, no noise. I didn't want revenge. I didn't need some grand moment of payback. I just wanted them to sit in it, the same silence they'd ignored, the same language they dismissed. Let them feel what it's like when no one's listening and no one can speak. Wednesday morning, I didn't show up to the office. Didn't need to. Alain Lefebvre did. He walked through the front doors of Grayson Industries at exactly 9 o'clock. No bodyguards, no photographers, no PR flunkies buzzing around him. Just that same tailored charcoal suit and Leia, 3 steps behind, clipboard in hand. He never moved fast. He didn't have to. His presence did the talking. I wasn't there to watch it, but I'd seen it enough times to picture it clear as day, the silence that always followed his entrance. Phones going quiet, conversations stopping mid-sentence. The weight of someone who didn't raise his voice because he never needed to. Dane met him in the lobby like he was greeting a celebrity. Big handshake, corporate grin, way too much fake charm. "Mr. Lefebvre, we've got an interpreter lined up for today's meeting," Dane said, waving toward a nearby assistant. Leia didn't even glance at her clipboard, just looked Dane in the eye and said, calm as ever, "Where's Eric?" That's when the first crack showed. Dane's smile twitched. He was reassigned. Leia's expression didn't change. She turned to Alain and signed something short, controlled, efficient. Alain's face didn't move, no emotion. But he stiffened, just slightly. He didn't say a word, just walked past Dane and into the boardroom like nothing else needed explaining. The rest of the executive team was already there. Suits in place, tablets open, fake confident smiles plastered across their faces. But they knew. They felt it. Dane cleared his throat. "We're just waiting on our interpreter. Should be here shortly," but she never came. He didn't know it yet, but he'd already gone through every name on the city's certified list. Carl had said no. Jody had said no. Anyone with half a spine had declined. Word had spread. Fast. The silence stretched. Leia set her pen down and signed to Alain again. He raised his hand slightly. Just a flick of the wrist. "We'll wait, but not for long." That's what he signed. Not a threat. A boundary. Panic started creeping into Dane's eyes. He turned to his assistant, whispered something sharp. She nodded and rushed out the room. The others shifted uncomfortably. You could hear jacket fabric move, someone coughing into their elbow. The kind of silence that doesn't feel neutral. It feels loaded. Alain didn't even look at them. He just watched the door. The assistant came back 5 minutes later, whispering something in Dane's ear. He stood up. "We're experiencing a minor scheduling issue. The interpreter we booked, she had an emergency." Leia raised one eyebrow. That was it. Alain adjusted his watch, leaned back in his chair. Still didn't speak, still didn't sign. Because what was there to say? The man who made communication possible was gone, and no one in that room could fill the gap. 10 minutes passed, then 20. The assistant came back in again, this time without even pretending to whisper. "They're all booked or unavailable," she said, her voice tight. Dane looked around the room like someone was going to bail him out. No one moved. One of the junior VPs mumbled, "Can we reschedule?" Alain finally looked up. His eyes moved from person to person, stopping briefly on Dane. Then he signed, slow and deliberate. "If this is how you do business now, maybe this is our last meeting." Leia didn't translate it out loud. She didn't need to. You could see it land, right in Dane's gut. He stood there frozen, eyes darting between the door and the man he couldn't understand. He tried to salvage it. "We're committed to this relationship. We're just ironing out new leadership transitions." Alain raised a hand, stopped him mid-sentence. The message was clear. Stop talking. Dane sat down, hard. No interpreter, no progress, no trust, just silence. And every second of it said the same thing. You fired the one person who knew how to listen. The room was heavy when I walked in. You could feel it. Stale, uncertain air like someone had left the windows closed too long. No badge, no escort. I opened the door myself and stepped through like I'd never left. Dane looked up mid-sentence, eyes wide. His mouth opened like he was about to speak, but nothing came out. I didn't look at him. Didn't look at the execs lined up like kids in Sunday school. I walked straight to Alain. He saw me before I got to the table. His face didn't change, but his posture did. Shoulders eased, head tilted slightly. Recognition. I stopped in front of him, met his eyes, and signed. They didn't ask what I did. They just fired me. He blinked once, then signed back. Calm, brief. Then he turned to Dane, held his gaze for 3 full seconds. No expression, just the weight of a man who'd already made up his mind. He gave a single nod. Leia spoke the words, clear, cold, and final. "We'll sign the papers, but this will be the final visit under current leadership." Silence dropped again. Dane stared at her like he hadn't heard right. Then at Alain, then at me, still trying to calculate if this was a bluff. And then, the stupidest move of the morning, he smiled. Grinned like some clueless rookie who thought a signature meant a closed deal. He didn't get it. Alain didn't come for signatures. He came to feel whether the people he invested in could be trusted. And Dane? He'd just proven he couldn't even be understood. I didn't say a word, didn't shake hands, didn't look back. I turned and walked out, the same way I came in, quiet, calm, and finished. By the time I hit the stairwell, my blood was steady again. I didn't need applause, didn't need payback, because the wreckage was already smoldering, and they were the ones standing in it. I was halfway through a grilled cheese when it happened. My phone buzzed. Not a call, a message from a friend still inside Grayson. All it said was, "It landed." That afternoon, Grayson got the email. From Ridgestone's legal team. No branding, no press release. Just one sentence in bold. Effective immediately. Ridgestone Holdings is ending all future engagement with Grayson Industries. There was no explanation needed, but they gave one anyway. Attached was a short video file, boardroom footage, no audio. Just a minute-long clip of me signing to Alain, him watching, him nodding, no screaming, no drama, no words, just proof of connection, proof they'd cut off their own bridge. Underneath the video was one line of text. If this is how you treat loyalty, we want nothing to do with you. The whole exec floor went still. You could have heard someone breathe wrong. Dane watched the clip in his office on loop. Wouldn't talk. Wouldn't move. One of the assistants said he stared at the screen like it was haunted. He knew. Finally. And like every weak man backed into a corner, he lashed out. First came the whispers. Started showing up in corporate Slack channels, private email threads. Things like, Eric was never formally assigned to Ridgestone, or he was out of scope, lacked documentation. Then came the back channel calls. He hit up every contact he had in legal, PR, and recruiting. Tried to paint me as unstable. Said I'd misrepresented my role. Said I was territorial, resentful, uncooperative. Corporate poison, in other words. Next, he went public. Just enough to seem clean. A little blurb in a local business column. Some anonymous source saying Grayson had tightened leadership expectations and streamlined legacy roles that didn't align with modern strategy. He never used my name, but everyone knew. That's when Ridgestone dropped the second hammer. A letter, not to him, to the board. From Ridgestone's general counsel. One paragraph. Simple. Cease all communications attempting to undermine Eric Dawson's professional character. If this continues, we will go public. That word, public, was the death shot. Dane went pale. Someone said he actually leaned against the wall when he read it, like it took the wind out of him. Because public meant press, headlines, investors pulling back. It meant Ridgestone would show every email, every smear attempt, every petty lie. And Alain Lefebvre wasn't some petty rich guy. He was known for surgical precision. Grayson didn't stand a chance in that kind of light. I never said a word, never posted, never responded. I didn't have to. The silence said enough. They'd fired a man who lived in that silence and built trust inside of it. Now they were stuck drowning in it. No interpreter, no defense, no way forward. And Dane, he was already sinking, fast. I was sitting in a corner booth at Bean & Barrel, same place I always went when I needed to think without someone breathing down my neck. Black coffee, half full, no cream, my phone face down. That's when the courier walked in. Kid in a red windbreaker, envelope in hand, looking around like he wasn't sure if this was the right place. Eric Dawson? He asked. I raised a hand. He handed me the envelope like it weighed something. No folder. No logo. Just thick paper and a handwritten name in tight, perfect script. I knew that handwriting. I slid my finger under the flap, careful not to tear it. Inside, just one page. Alain's stationery. A short message. No fluff. We'd like to offer you a role at Ridgestone. Title, Director of Cross-Cultural Integrity. I read it twice. It wasn't just a job. It was a seat at the table. Not as someone's translator. Not as someone's fallback plan. As a decision maker. My job wouldn't be to interpret words anymore. It'd be to interpret people. To shape policy, to protect trust before someone could screw it up again. I took the pen from my jacket. A Mont Blanc Alain had given me 2 years ago after I'd helped close a delicate deal with a South Korean firm. Back then, I thought it was just a thank you. Now, I knew better. It was a marker, a sign, a tool for something bigger. I signed that contract right there in the coffee shop. No hesitation. With a pen Dane couldn't afford and a reputation he couldn't erase. By the time I stepped back outside, my phone was buzzing again. More friends from Grayson. Clients were leaving. Fast. No explanations, just quiet withdrawals. Projects frozen mid-cycle. Invoices flagged for review. Meanwhile, HR was starting to dig. Someone had finally noticed the gaps in my termination record. Entries missing, timestamps scrubbed. The file looked like it had been edited by someone in a rush. Turns out, Dane had tried to erase everything that showed I was tied to Ridgestone, probably to make the firing seem legit. But sloppiness has a cost. The HR lead, a sharp woman named Carla, started asking questions about old terminations, about missing files, about why my name wasn't attached to any contracts, but showed up in every executive trip log for the past 8 years. People started whispering. Then the whispers turned, louder, sharper. Dane stopped showing up in the office, started calling into meetings, started letting legal handle it. But lawyers don't fix broken trust. The damage was done. And now it had a paper trail. And me, I wasn't just the ghost of their mistake anymore. I was walking proof that silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes it's just the sound of something big coming, and this time it had ink. It was a Tuesday when it finally cracked. The board summoned Dane. No advance notice, no agenda. Just a short calendar invite. Executive review, Isnestex AM. He walked in thinking it was damage control, maybe a strategy session. But the moment he saw the envelope on the table, thick cream stock, his name in bold, he knew. They didn't offer him coffee. No one smiled, just silence. The kind he hadn't learned to respect. One of the board members, a man named Lasky who rarely raised his voice, slid the envelope forward. "You lied," he said. "You tampered with employee records." Another board member leaned in. "You cost us everything." Dane tried to speak, but the room didn't give him space. No one asked for his version. They had already heard enough. From HR, from legal, from Ridgestone. He opened the envelope. Inside, one sheet. Resignation form. Pre-filled, no severance, no clause. Just a dotted line. His hands were shaking when he signed it. Not dramatic, not a tantrum. Just quiet defeat. The kind that hits when you realize you played yourself trying to play everyone else. He loosened his tie, tucked the pen in his jacket, and left the room without a word. That was Dane Mercier's big exit. No headlines, no defense. Just a man whose arrogance had rotted faster than he could cover it. A week later, I was back in that same conference room. Not as staff, not even as a contractor, as a guest. Grayson's new leadership had reached out, asked if I'd speak to their executive team. Not about what happened, about what they missed. I showed up in a gray jacket, no tie, no badge. They escorted me in with handshakes and bottled water like I was some industry guru. But I wasn't there for optics. I stood at the head of that long glass table, looked them all in the eye. Familiar faces, a few new ones. Then I said, "You built a system that ignored what didn't fit neatly into a resume. And that ignorance cost you. No slides, no pitch deck. Just me. You all want to talk about data, credentials, best practices, but none of that means anything if you ignore the people right in front of you. The ones who carry the weight when no one's watching." No one interrupted. Not this time. I kept my voice steady. Let the words land where they needed to. Trust isn't built with degrees. It's built when someone shows up every single time. Even when nobody's clapping. Even when there's no title attached. They knew what I was talking about. I didn't have to say names. Didn't have to rehash the damage. I wasn't there for payback. I was there because someone had to say it out loud. That leadership without connection is just noise. And they listened. Not because I was powerful now, but because I'd been invisible once. And that had nearly cost them everything. I wrapped up with one line. You don't build loyalty by talking over people. You build it by hearing what no one else listens for. I didn't stay for lunch. Didn't take questions. I left the same way I had the day I was fired. Calm, quiet, and clear. And this time, when I walked out of that building, I knew they'd remember me. Not as a casualty, as the lesson. Dane Mercier disappeared the way cowards do. Quietly. No press release. No thank you email. 1 week he was pacing those hallways like he owned them. The next, he was just gone. No one said his name. They didn't have to. His resignation stained that company louder than a headline ever could. Ridgestone never made a statement. Alain didn't need one. He knew real power didn't need to shout. I never talked to the media, never posted some cryptic status on LinkedIn, because I didn't need applause. I got something better, respect. At Ridgestone, they didn't call me the interpreter. That title was dead. I was the guy who saw people no one else bothered to, who knew the weight of a pause, the meaning behind a shift in posture, the man who connected more with silence than half the room did with noise. One afternoon, we were in a strategy session with a group from Brazil. Everyone was tense. Translation delays, cultural differences, egos in the room. Afterward, Alain pulled me aside. No crowd, no performance. He signed, "You taught me who to trust." I didn't say thank you. I just nodded and kept doing what I'd always done. Showed up. Stayed steady. Meanwhile, Grayson was still trying to rebuild the trust they'd torched. The new leadership reached out again, asked if I'd return for internal workshops. Cross-cultural training, inclusion, ethics. I agreed, but on my terms, no contracts. No photo ops, just my time and my truth. I didn't do it for them. I did it because people still working there deserve better. And every time I walked through that lobby, past the spot where I'd once been walked out, eyes followed. Not in pity, not in fear, in respect. Because they finally understood. You can't fire what you never took the time to understand.